One of the things I love about creating art is the evolution of art. Especially playing with the 3D printer. That gives me plenty of time to not only be on my computer, in my CAD program and create a design there, but then I get to go to like my little 3D printer that sits on my desk and I get to create something like this. And this is just a little maquette. It's of a snake plant, and that's a real plant. And I was looking at the idea of either creating this out of metal or going to the big printer and creating it with the big 3D printer. But first I got to see how it'll look. Once I get it off of the computer, get it out of the computer, will the 3D printer actually make it? Will it make it correctly? What kind of changes do I want to make from the thing I see on the screen to the thing I'm actually holding in my hand? And that just takes me from a little tiny maquette like this to an even bigger maquette or small sculpture, depending on how you want to look at it. And of course, a change in filament. Now this becomes really important. The orange one, that's called a PET-G filament. And it's a kind of a hybrid between like a PLA filament, which is the easiest one to print with, and an ABS filament, which is something that's safe to go outside, because PLA isn't. Well, this I did in PLA in a translucent red, or a ruby red, I think it was. And I only used that because I didn't have any PET-G. I didn't have enough PET-G to print this one this big. And then after looking at it, I thought, well, okay, but how can we play with this some more? So I've got that nice red tone, that red tint to it everywhere. So I painted the base, brownish, two-tone brown, little black, little brown, make it look like dirt, basically. And then just start painting the stems, a little bit of purple, a darker green, a forest green, I think it was, a little lighter green, and then just kind of fade it up into the translucent red. No, wait, I know. Let's put a little copper on it, just a mist, get a foot away, 18 inches away, and just give it a little spritz. Give it just a little bit of a color. The cool thing with this one is, if you take it out in the sun actually still shines through it a little. It will light up a little. It's like, that is really cool. I took the original design and I went back into my CAD program, and you can see I shrunk some of the stems. I made them a little bit smaller. I gave them a little bit of a twist. Gave them a little attitude. Make them look cool. Make it look like, well, it's almost like a real plant. And then I thought, well, all right, I love this. Now it's time to do this. This is Simora susicus. There's a fancy Latin name for you. And this is actually out of PLA. I tried 3 different times to print this piece. Twice with PET-G, because I had a great big spool that wouldn't fit on my other machine. So I tried it over here. Horrible failures. It was awful what happened. And then I tried it again in that same red translucent PLA, and it got within like 3 hours of finishing. It was almost to the top, and the computer stopped working. Oh, start over. So this is actually a rainbow filament. You can see the rainbow effect in this area on all the pads. I left that just the bare filament. Just like I did with Viper plant, that's the red one I just showed you. I wanted to paint it. A little bit of forest green on the bottom, on the sides, and then 4 different shades of gray with that forest green kind of misted up in there just a little bit, just to kind of muddy the water, just kind of blend it in a little. And then the different shades of gray, or of green rather, as I was going up. But you can still see the little bit of the rainbow filament kind of peeking through just a little bit right there, and those little stripes that are in it. And that is just so cool. It's like, I didn't know it would do that. This is exciting. Left the rainbow on the pads, and then just added some red tips to it, like it's blooming. But of course, there's still little hidden treasures. There's still little hidden things that pop out all of a sudden. On Viper plant, that was done with a U.S.-made filament, a U.S.-made PLA, and it turned out almost perfect. There's a couple tiny little surface imperfections, but nothing major. But with the Chinese-made rainbow filament, and the fact that I blew it up so much bigger, and all of a sudden, now I've got all these little artifacts in the base here, all these little voids. It almost looks like, bugs were coming up out of the dirt, or worms or something. And then as you start looking up the stems, you start seeing, there's little holes in there too. It's just covered in these little tiny holes. And I finally figured out what happened there. It's a combination of the settings on the printer, the retraction and extrusion settings were not quite right, and it was causing the little voids, because I would hear it pop. Every time it would hop to a new location from one stem to the other, I'd hear it pop, like a piece of gum. That little pop in there as it starts to print. It was actually retracting so far, it was pulling air up inside the nozzle. And as it hopped to the next location and started to extrude, it had that little bubble in it. So just a little bit of a setting change. But just from this size to the previous size, and this kind of thing crops up. So you're always playing with it. You're always messing with the settings a little. You got to keep an eye on it. You got to watch it as it's printing. But God, I love how this turned out. That's C. Morris Susicus. I hope you enjoyed learning more about it the way I did as I'm going along, as the evolution of art is continuing just right in front of my eyes, from one machine to the next, one maquette to the next, then finally finished sculpture. God, I love my job. And I love you guys too. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being on the other end of the internet. Don't forget to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time. I don't care what anybody says. If you're not putting this stuff on your 3D printer, you can't make plants grow like this.